We have developed as a society to the point where we're not able to be with ourselves. We are inundated with distractions all the time. I really believe that the key to kind of shifting your life is to slow the down, listen to yourself, and trust yourself. Because we've also been taught not to trust ourselves.
Are you looking to transform your life right now, this day, and for the rest of your year and the rest of your life, if you want? Are you looking for that, especially coming through the situation of the pandemic that we've lived in since 2020, and you really, really want to find good and true meaning in your life? Well, I got the person here for you in this episode, Dev KEAL, and her name is Magdalena Jensen. How are you doing today, Magdalena?
Hi, Dev. Thanks so much for inviting me onto your show. Really excited for this conversation. And how am I doing today? Great. It's Friday.
Yes. And it's almost your birthday. So, we're not going to say when
and
it's
airs. Gemini season. So
what does that mean? What if you're a Gemini, like what kind of person
I'm a Gemini sign. Yeah, I'm a Gemini sign. So that's usually like gregarious, bubbly, outgoing, also multidimensional. The twins are often thought of as like, two-faced, but really it's actually about being multidimensional. Pop culture has effed with the zodiac signs and the astrology signs to fit, whatever they want it to. And really it's about the fact that we have lots of interests, multiple varieties of interest, and we're quite like this bubbly character on the outside.
You're the life of the party, right?
Can be. Unless I don't want to be at the party.
Unless it's your birthday too, though. I mean, that's something to celebrate in of itself, right? Yeah, so, exactly. Magdalena, you have a really interesting, direction that you uphold in your life and how you help people. So, especially with people who have really, really been distraught in many ways since 2020, whether it be how the pandemic affected them in a psychological way, in a physical way, obviously, seeing people pass away around them, and then also they've been impacted in their personal life to many variations, many degrees. How are you in these times, especially helping people get on track with like finding true purpose and their inner compass and really find a fulfilling life? How are you doing that? And explain what you do to our audience, please.
Ooh, that feels like a loaded question.
A little long-winded, but deep. Let's get deep now.
Let's get deep. I like that. Let's not fuck around with time. Let's get deep. So, I am, as you said, a transformative life coach as well. I'm a conflict mediator. I'm a trained women's circles facilitator. And I'm a nearly 36-year-old woman with that many years of experience on this planet. I've lived in 4 different countries. I speak 3 different languages. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like, I am the sum of all of those things. And the reason that I bring that to the table is because that's also very relevant to coaching, that kind of variety, let's say, that I have in my background. I've also started several different companies, pan-European nonprofit as well, fundraised several €100,000 for it. So I've been very much in that business world as well. So today I work with, or these days, I work with a variety of clients, men and women, largely people that work for themselves, largely entrepreneurs, people in startups or small companies that they're quite heavily involved in the management of, let's say. So like kind of in that startup environment, entrepreneurship environment. And I guess if I were to put it in just a couple of words, I support people to trust themselves. That's kind of the key to all of it. We live in a society that for thousands of years, really since the founding of some of the largest world religions, we have lived in a world that kind of keeps us separate from ourselves, right? And separate from the spark of universe, spirit, divinity, God, whatever, however you want to call that, inside of you. You need a conduit, you need a priest, you need a church, right, to be able to access that part of you. And I think that paradigm is pretty tired and doesn't serve us very well anymore. And so I really support people on a metaphysical, emotional, spiritual level, and very, very practical level to meet themselves again, to hear themselves again, to remember who they really are. It's even less about becoming someone and more about unbecoming and coming back to themselves and hearing themselves, their intuition, and trusting that in order to be able to move forward in life however they want. So I don't use a program or a particular methodology. You, as my client, let's say, are the methodology. Whatever your needs, desires, dreams, fears, stresses are, that's all kind of brought to the table and figured into the process that we go through together.
And can you explain that process? What is it kind of like exactly if I'm meeting for the first time?
Largely, it is a conversational process, very, very questions based. I am by nature very, very curious. That's another part of being a Gemini, super curious about the world, about people, about the brain and how our psychology works. And so it's a lot of questions based speaking. As well, I do some somatic work as well. So some breathing, some meditating, some grounding practices, rituals of different kinds that I might either run together with my client in a session, or I might offer them as homework, journal prompts, integrative kind of activities like that, I'd say. And the session is really led by the client in a way. What is happening for them? What is alive in them? And at the same time, I kind of hold this container of a process, keeping in mind what it is that they'd like to achieve. So it's like this constant balancing act. And it's not, like I said, it is not a program. It is a deep transformational process. So it's for people who really who feel that there's something else. There's something else out there for them than their 9-to-5 kind of grind and hustle and, only live for weekends and need to take a vacation to escape their life kind of. For people who feel like there's something off with that, I like to work with those kind of people who know deep inside of them that there's something else. There's something else out there that's bigger, that's more them. And let's just find that and let's work with that. And let's create also like a strategy to bring it out and to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve.
And so you're really, more than anything, just being very attuned, very attentive, very perceptive of what they're wanting to present to you, you helping them bring that out and then go from there to kind of strategize how to either better their situation or at least recognize what's going on with them, no?
Exactly. Yeah, you really put that well in words. Thank you. Like for me, the most important thing is to show up fully present to a session. Like I aim to be as fully present with my clients as possible, so that exactly what you say, I have the capacity to be able to pick up on the energetics of the situation, to tune into their body language, to notice that one tiny word that they might have used that actually is the key to shifting their mindset around something. And that is like so fun.
Sure. Oh yeah, because you're paying a lot of attention more than anything. And you're, like you said, very present, very aware. And having someone like yourself do that for someone else, I think is in general a very rare quality, because we don't live, I feel, generally in a society where a lot of people pay attention to anyone. Everyone's focused on in their own silos. So that's great that they can at least come to you and work on that.
Let alone people paying attention to themselves, quite frankly. We have developed as a society to the point where we're not able to be with ourselves. We are inundated with distractions all the time. Our brain chemistry and our brain psychology has been changed by the technology around us to almost need the external distractions, right? So it can be really difficult for people to talk about themselves, to hear themselves. It can be stressful. It can be anxiety inducing. And so there's like all the stuff that comes with all of that. And I really believe that the key to kind of shifting your life is to slow the fuck down, listen to yourself and trust yourself. Because we've also been taught not to trust ourselves, especially during the course of the pandemic. We have been told that we aren't trustworthy to make our own decisions about our health, for example, and we need to be told what kinds of decisions we need to be making about our health, right? So that's just one micro example, but there are many, 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 many of them that have compounded over time to, like I started to say at the very beginning, to disconnect us from ourselves, really.
Have you seen anything in general have a totally different shift in anxiety or worries with people since the pandemic than before 2020?
100%.
And how do you
100%.
how do you address that, like, in your own way? And is there just a lot of blockages that maybe are sometimes challenging for you to help people?
That's an interesting question. Let me start with the first part of the question. So for sure, huge changes, increasing anxiety levels, suicide rates are up. Like, these are measurable changes. That's not just like anecdotal that I'm noticing, right? So there are huge changes into how people are feeling about themselves and about the state of the world. And there are chemical and physical reasons behind that as well. And people have also, most of my clients have lost complete idea of what it is that they want their life to even look like. They've lost the vision. And so that's one of the places that we start first, working with how to create that vision again. And that's it's not as easy as just asking the question, oh, so what do you want from life? Or what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Well, it's not about that. People physically are unable to access the part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex and the pineal gland, that allows your imagination to open up and create a vision for the future. And they've lost that ability, that connection, because they have so much cortisol and adrenaline pumping through their blood all the time, because we're in a heightened state of alert all the time these days. And if we're in this, like, our sympathetic nervous system is hyperactive, right? We're constantly like in fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode all the time, because we're just inundated with fear, war, disease, climate disaster. Just everything is horrible that we're being inundated with on the outside. So our body is like, all the time. And when you have that much cortisol and adrenaline pumping through your blood and through your brain, you're unable to think clearly. You're unable to have a true sense of discernment, and you are for sure unable to project yourself into the future and create any kind of vision of what you might desire, what you might want, what it could be for yourself. So the access to that part of your subconscious and to that part of your imagination is a little bit more complicated than just asking the question. There's a lot involving nervous system regulation, reprogramming and rewiring of your brain, creating a new sense of safety in yourself, in your body, and in your current scenario. A sense of safety in the fact that everything is changing. Everything around us is changing, and we're not going back to where we were ever again. So that kind of, it's a massive process, and it's very, like I said, individual. It really depends on what comes up for every person. Is it panic attacks? Is it anxiety? Is it an ability or inability to meditate or not? Is it anger? Is it hyper overworking? A lot of people right now are caught in this like burnout loop because they think they have to. And with prices going up and with inflation, they're like, oh my God, I have to earn money. I have to earn money. And we live in this scarcity paradigm that there's not enough for everybody. And that's like complete bullshit. That without getting, I don't use this word lightly. That is the patriarchy. And I really don't use that word lightly. The patriarchy has created this false sense of scarcity and of it's just all an illusion. And I think that illusion is failing people left, right, and center these days. And therefore, they are waking up a little bit to it. They're waking up and coming home to themselves and seeing that they need to do something to support themselves. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be stressed, exhausted, burned out. You don't have to have, like in women, so much is showing up as reproductive issues. The amount of friends that I have around me and the amount of clients that have endometriosis, difficulties with their periods, fertility issues, conception issues. I mean, this is like, what the fuck happened to the world? So there's so much we can do with nervous system regulation, mindset shifts, and implementing new habits and beliefs to support all of that stuff. I am like not saying that I'm a magician and I don't cure endometriosis, but there's so much on an energetic, spiritual, and psychological level that we can do to support our bodies. So it does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of leads me to another one to throw it off what you're saying, because obviously everything we want to do in our life has to always start with us, right? I mean, I think in a way you got to become your own best friend, and you got to love yourself before you love life.
100%.
You know, so if someone, like, especially when they work with you and they have that desire really to get on track with their life and all the facets that encompasses, how important then, or what is your recommendation to people, especially if they live in a circumstance maybe with someone or other people that have a tremendous influence on their day-to-day? How do you go about letting them know how to handle that with the people around them?
I'm not entirely sure I understand what you mean. So can you maybe explain a little better?
No, absolutely.
Or give an example?
No, definitely. So maybe let's just say hypothetically, like someone goes to and they just are really worried about X issue, Y issue, and it's been on their mind for many, many years, and they may be holding them back to living their true life, their full life, whatever it is, whatever their dream is. But maybe they live with someone that says, okay, you are nothing, you're a disgrace, you're garbage on a day-to-day basis. But then, you know, inside they're really torn apart between, like, I want to do this, I feel bad day to day because of how I naturally feel and how this person makes me feel. So then, like, what is the way in which you tell your clients and the people you work with, like, okay, you can become who you want to become, and this is how you deal with also this issue or this person?
So first of all, some of those words that you use that other external party might be using sound really abusive and awful. So I would really like to, first of all, establish if there is abuse happening, physical, mental, psychological, and kind of deal with that. As a coach, I don't necessarily go into kind of back trauma and backstories and past to see where that kind of stuff might come from or whatever. It's more like, okay, where are we at now and how can we move forward with this? I am trained in cognitive behavioral therapy though, so that brings like a lot of awareness about how to deal with these sorts of things to the table from my side. So first of all, for sure, establishing, is this a situation that's abusive, that I need to be concerned about the safety of my client? And then it's kind of and after that's established, depending on where that goes, it's around creating that safety and supporting people to create that safety within themselves, cultivating a sense of safety and peace within yourself, and a deep, deep, deep sense of self-belief. I mean, this is a complicated topic you brought up. It's not an easy one. There are many factors involved. So also as a, and then there's also elements like, okay, now how do I deal with that other person? Because I can do a lot for myself within my own container of my body and my mind and my spirit in terms of energy work to protect my aura or to clean myself out or to set up kind of boundaries. A lot of boundaries you can set in a verbal way as well. And dialoguing or interacting with that other party that might be really like putting all of that negativity on you is a possibility. It is as well a process. So hurt people. Yeah. So when someone is using that kind of language to, let's say me, if someone is speaking to me that way, for me, it's instantly clear that they're hurt. Something is wrong with them. I don't mean to say that they're broken at all, but something's wrong inside. Something isn't right. Something is hurting, quite frankly. And so I have the capacity to be able to react or interact with great empathy and compassion with that kind of person, because I fill my empathy well every day. Some days I don't. Some days I'm triggered and my husband and I have a fight, for example. But generally, I have like a pretty good handle on kind of how full my empathy tank is. And if mine's full, then I'm really able to give a lot of empathy. And if I were to, let's say, interact in a mediation scenario between two parties like this, as a mediator, I would not bring them together at first. I would keep them apart from each other as much as possible to make sure and give them lots and lots of empathy and compassion on each side, so that each side feels this sense of being seen, being heard, being listened to, like they have this trust that their needs are important and can be met. And then you start to bring people together so that they can start to face each other. Only after each side has come to some kind of point of emotional and psychological stability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's really interesting. And often, a process and, just having to have the deeper understanding more and more. I mean, yeah, like I always say with my wife, and she hates it, it takes two to tango, but maybe the other one doesn't want to tango, so
totally.
that's we're doing our own polka dance somewhere, right? So, which is a great dance, by the way. Magdalena, what is it that you think? I mean, you talked about when people come to you, there's like trust issues sometimes with themselves and other things, but what is it also that you see when people come to you and really are searching and having this deep desire to really become the person they want to become? What are some of the other main variables that really hold them back, like that people underestimate about themselves that you've seen?
That's interesting. And the way you even phrased the question is interesting. And it's something I made a note about earlier because it was in the kind of previous show notes. So it's less about becoming and more about unbecoming.
Right.
So I truly believe that our, not let's say only, but kind of the seed, the basis of our purpose on this planet is to be fully ourselves, to be 100% authentically us. And that is the medicine that the world needs right now, is for all of us to step into our authenticity. Now, we are taught from pretty much birth not to do that. One of the first questions you get as soon as you start to go to school, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to bloody be myself. Right. And so, or like, oh, you're too much, you're too bossy, right? There are all of these parameters on who and how we be are set up very, very early. So we're basically programmed into becoming someone we're not. And we're programmed into creating all of these, fulfilling all of these roles within society that I think are just completely outdated, because I don't think that the structures of our society as they exist today serve us anymore, quite frankly. Human consciousness is evolving towards something else. And it's time for us to catch up really with that process. And it's about stripping it back to really unbecome all of the shoulds, all of the good girls, or, the polite little boys, or whatever it is that we were supposed to become. It's about stripping all of that back and seeing who we are, feeling who we are, hearing ourselves, seeing ourselves in a different original light, let's say. I mean, and the reason that I really this is a big one for me. I literally even just started writing. I wrote about this on Instagram earlier this week. So it's really cool that this came up. It's a miracle that we have incarnated in this flesh bag at this moment in time, in this weird matrix of space and time and cosmic whatever that's going on. Like it is. The space is infinite. Time is infinite. The fact that you and I are having this conversation is like a speck in the microcosm of everything, if you know what I mean. So that we don't have anything else to do except be ourselves. We came here to do that. And it's like we've just totally forgotten and gone and started to, through the confines of the ways that society is structured, we've gone and just totally forgotten. And now let's be clear, I am not necessarily an advocate of full anarchy. It might sound like I am, but that's not the case. I'm not entirely sure what I advocate for yet, because as I said, I really do believe that we're going through a massive shift right now and a huge consciousness upgrade. And I don't necessarily know what we should be or what is coming. Or what might be different, or how we can do all of this differently. How can we organize as humans on the planet differently? I don't know. I don't have the answers. And I do know that it's time to come back to ourselves. It's time to come home to who we are. And that takes courage, that takes consistency, that takes practice. It takes bold ass moves. It takes investment. It might take letting go of a lot of things, all of the ideas of who we thought we might be or who we're supposed to be, or right. So there's a lot wrapped up in that.
It's really interesting. And it when you were kind of describing that as well, like everything you had just mentioned, I was thinking about Wim Hof when he talks about, he has a song called Crazy Like a Monkey, but he's talking, he wrote it and it's really funny if anyone can hear it sometime, but the general idea is that our brain, our like the mind, the the frontal cortex, all this activity that we have neurologically can block us from, the pineal gland and certain flow of energy and activity. So it's that crazy brain that messes everything up, unfortunately,
Totally. It's the ego monkey mind. So he's talking about the monkey mind. That's a pretty common term, right?
Right.
And it's this like chatter of all of these things. And so the reason that that's particularly interesting, I'm really glad you brought that up because I did want to talk about the ego a little bit. The ego is a psychological construct to keep us safe. It is there to protect us, to keep us physically safe, which sometimes might mean keeping us small or talking us out of things, right? But that's when you're able to have a sparring partner in a conversation, for example, like working with a coach, then you're able to dissect when is your monkey mind the one at play? What is that script that you're running over and over again? Or when are you really listening to your truth and your intuition and that connection to spirit, quite frankly, that is able to guide you even into decisions and through things that might seem incredibly scary. And that's why I like that kind of whole idea, growth happens outside of your comfort zone. It does. It truly does. Because your ego mind is there to keep you safe, it might be keeping you small, right? So if you're able to recognize, hear, observe, and thank the ego even for coming up. Hey, thanks for showing up today. I trust that you're here to keep me safe. Like, thanks. I don't need it today. Today, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to be bold and courageous and I'm going to follow spirit. Well, there you go. Right. Like that shifts the dynamic because then you've fed that hunger that the ego has for recognition. And you've opened that capacity to be able to quiet it and shift something forward for yourself.
So it definitely serves a purpose somewhere.
It 100% serves a purpose. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really interesting the way you frame that. Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll evolve out of it at some point. It might not be my lifetime, but I think we'll evolve out of it as the world becomes more safe, as we shift into an abundance mindset, as like our kind of baseline sense of safety changes, then we will evolve out of needing that ego mind. And I'm not the only one who talks about this. Eckhart Tolle talks about this. Lots of people, Richard Rudd talks about this, and Gene Keys. Like, this is an inevitability of the evolution of human consciousness. And it's going to take some time still.
Little by little, right?
Yeah.
Magdalena, it's been absolutely fascinating having you on this episode, and I think our audience is really, really going to love this conversation. And just before we conclude, I'd have one last question to ask you, and we'll have to find a part 2 in the future for our audience because I think they'd be really.
I would love to. This is so fun. I can't believe it's over already.
I know, it goes so quick, but we'll have to go into a deep dive on a couple other subjects very specifically in the next one, if you agree. So I would love to have that with you.
I would love to.
Let me just conclude by asking you, what is it that you are hoping, let's just say personally as Magdalena, to hope and achieve for yourself and helping other people? Like, what is it that you feel this natural innate calling for continuously to really, really transform people's lives?
You used a few words that throw me off track a little bit, like achieve. I'm not so excited to achieve much anymore. I used to be.
Right.
I used to be all about building, achieving awards, right? And I don't feel that need at all anymore. So, so maybe it's more like around the impact that I would like to have. Could I phrase it that way?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you kind of responded that way, saying like you're not looking for accolades or achievement or anything like that. But what is it? I guess I'll just reframe it by asking then, like, what is it that really is driving you to want to do what you do to make the world a better place each and every day?
Yeah, I want to become a mother. So I want the world to be a more beautiful, receptive place. I want my future children to live in a more abundant, loving, present society in which we are stewards of Mother Earth and not exploiters of Mother Earth, in which we collaborate in community instead of compete and cut each other down. I would love to see the end of war. I don't believe in war. I never have. I am 100% a pacifist, and I have been my entire life, an incredibly active pacifist, actually, and gotten very much in trouble for it in the past. So for me, that's kind of like the big picture. And the way that we do that is through building, the way that I've found to do that for myself, my path, is to support people to have greater trust in themselves and their intuition, because that increases their capacity for compassion, their capacity to see the light and beauty in others. And that in and of itself will fundamentally change so many things. And so for me, if I can have an impact on just a few people to do that, which I do, I know I have that impact. I literally feel it every single day when I'm coaching clients. So it feeds my soul. It doesn't feel like work. It's fun and it's beautiful. And like seeing people light up with something that they realized for themselves about themselves is like the dopest thing ever. So it's about that kind of, if I can answer, if that answers your question.
No, it's great. No, I really, especially there's so many great things you said there. And I especially like that last part where you said like lighting people up and having them figure that out for themselves, or you leading them in that way, in your own way. So I think that's really beautiful. And I thank you for all the work you're doing, the way that you are just lighting people up, let's say. And I congratulate you. And where can people find you, contact you, reach out to, work with you? Can you share that info with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to extend an invitation to anybody here that's listening, that is looking, that feels some kind of calling inside of themselves, that feels like there's this seed of wanting to change that they need to be able to water and put compost on and tend to, right? So I really would like to invite all of you to reach out to me, and we will do I would invite you into a coaching conversation. I don't do conversations where we talk about what I do. I do a deep dive into it. So I invite you to reach out. Well, I will block out, an hour or two in my calendar for you. We'll dive into your dreams and fears and desires and stresses, and hopefully tap into the land of possibility, what's possible for you, and see if coaching is a good fit, if we're a good fit, and work from there. So you can find me through my website, magdalenajensen.com, my full name, my Instagram, Magdalena Jensen _coach. I'm not deeply attached to any of the things that come out on either of those platforms. So I like to use those places to play. So if there's something that you see on Instagram or on my website that makes you want to play as well, so definitely please reach out.
Excellent. And we'll make sure to include all Magdalena's info in the description, the pinned comments, the show notes on all the podcast platforms everywhere. So it'll be ubiquitous, and then you can connect with her, follow her, and work with her. And especially if you want to transform your life today for the rest of your life. Magdalena, thank you so much for being on this episode. It was a pleasure and an honor, and thank you very much.
The honor and pleasure are all mine, Devin. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Magdalena. And we'll see you all in the next episode. And if you're interested in another conversation similar to this one or along the same topic, please click above, and we'll see you all then. Take care, everyone.